Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, LuAnn. LuAnn has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. LuAnn brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. Jane Cunningham joins me on the show today. Jane is the president, CEO, and principal designer of Room Resolutions, a luxury interior design firm located in Las Vegas, Nevada, that specializes in large-scale residential and commercial renovation as well as new builds. Interestingly, Jane is a classically trained musician, and she was the principal clarinetist in the Honolulu Symphony. Jane describes how she is inspired by and how she is skilled at finding her way through the intimacy of the second movement of a musical piece. She describes how, now she doesn't do this in the conversation today. We don't really talk about it in the conversation today, but in reading her website, I learned how she sees the second movement in music to be the correlation to the journey that we have in our lives, seeking a different tempo in the second part of our lives, maybe another key, or even changing theme and variation in our lives. And that got me to thinking about Fred Burns, who Fred Burns talks about finding your only. What is your only? And I thought it was very interesting that Jane not only knows what her only is, but that she actually has it right there on her website. She doesn't necessarily say that she is the only interior designer in Las Vegas that's a classically trained musician, but she does explain why her skill at being a classically trained musician and the particular talent that she had for the second piece in the works that she did, how it informs her as a person and as a designer. So I thought that was an interesting thing to note. You might check out her website and see how she goes into a little bit more detail about her background in music and so forth. Now, the other thing that we only spend a minute talking about, but I want to tell you about, is her daughter, Amanda. Amanda is the firm's design manager, and Amanda is responsible for educating the clients about the scope, the specifications, the details of the selections involved in all of their projects. She is responsible for the inner workings of the projects, from vendor relationships, procurement, and expediting to total project management, including overseeing the trades and the craftsmen. And she also manages all the social media and the website tasks. So Amanda sounds like a pretty busy lady. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, together, these two women run a heck of a firm. And as soon as I tell you about our sponsor, I'm going to be back with Jane, and you are going to understand for yourself exactly why I say they have a heck of a firm on their hands. Okay. So hang on just one second. I'd like to thank my sponsor, Cherish, and to let you know about this gem of a resource. Cherish, which can be found at www.charish.com/trade, is the premier online marketplace where design pros just like you can go to source the best vintage decor and furniture. With more than 125,000 curated items for sale, Cherish makes it easy, fun, and fast for you to find stylish pieces at great deals to suit every client and every project. The items are ready to ship, hint, hint, which means no waiting, and Cherish offers a 2-day return policy. Here's some more good stuff. Cherish trade members enjoy special benefits, including cash back on every purchase, white glove delivery, and exclusive concierge service. Sign up for their trade program today at www.cherish.com/trade. Hi, Jane. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, LuAnn. Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to our conversation, Jane. You had something very intriguing on your website that grabbed me. Like I say a lot on the show, you had me at hello. So I explained in the introduction your company, Room Resolutions. The thing is, when you get to your website, you have a heading there where you literally list the core values of your company. And that spoke to me. And that, like I said, that was, you had me at hello. I immediately was reading those. And then, of course, I was reading the rest of your site, which, of course, brought me to look at your portfolio, which is very beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
But the thing is, that's a big thing for us here at WindowWorks, that, we believe very strongly that you have to decide what it is that's important to you as a business owner and as a company, and that you have to express that to your staff, and then by virtue of that, express it to your consumer that you're trying to, entice to do business with you. And you don't see that so often. And I have to say that I loved it so much that I'm thinking about putting that on our website.
Well, they say copying is the highest form of flattery,
Yes,
so great.
That's it. I mean, I was like, hey, you talk about this all the time. Why don't you just put it out there the way Jane does? So I thought I had already had, a sort of line of questioning that I was thinking of in relation to you. But then when I saw that, I was like, oh, no, heck, throw that out with the bathwater. This is where we're going.
Okay, well, let's start.
That's it. So I'm going to just share, because the audience is probably mostly, running or walking or driving or something. So they're like, what are the core values? So I'm going to read down. You list 12 core values on your website, and they go like this: a cohesive team, champagne professionals, organized detail, seamless, highest quality, innovative, imaginative, personable, exemplary communication with design build team, on-time delivery, client-driven and focused budget, customizing requests into supreme comfort of grace, tailored design packages, assisting clients to navigate life's transitions, experience the wow factor. Okay, so these are what you have listed as your core values, and there's a few. First of all, I want to ask you some questions on how you arrived at them, and then I have some specific questions about some of them individually. So tell me, Jane, first of all, did you come to putting these on your website on advice of a business coach, or like me, you saw somebody who actually did it and liked the idea and decided to replicate it, or was it something personal to you? How did this happen? Because a lot of us have core values and we know what they are, but to truly put them out there like that is different. How did that happen?
Well, it was something that I think Amanda and I decided to do because we were adding some employees to work with us, and we were also noticing that clients were seeking something not tangible, which is design can be tangible to them, but they needed to know that we had more than just design in our basket of goodies that we were presenting. So we decided that we should put some things out there. I must say, we did work with a company, Malloy Management. Julia Malloy is the head of that company. They work with designers on creating a brand. And several years ago, we spoke with her about how do we show that our core values are actually really the same as our clients, and we want our clients to understand they're coming to someone who understands their values and what they're looking for. So upon doing that, we decided to sit down one day, and there were 3 of us in the office, sat down with some very large pieces of paper taped to a wall and going, okay, here's these white pieces of paper. What do we want to put on them? Because we want to talk about who we are and how do we come to that. And so many people talk about brand and changes and what's the look. And what we wanted to say is, this is who we are. This is the person you're going to work with for a long time on your project. What do we need our clients to know about us? And we approached it from our client's point of view and what they wanted to see. So we started filling up these 3 boards really quickly with things that came to mind when we spoke of luxury, when we came what came to mind when we spoke about service to our clients and what were our true intrinsic to us values of the company. And we ended up with quite a few things on the board and put them together. And that's how we arrived at that list of 12. And the next step was to say, well, if we've done all this work and this is who we are, let's shout it out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say this is who we are. What better way to do that than to put it on our website?
I love it. I mean, honestly, right there, that's like one of the most concise how-tos on the discussion of portraying value to a prospective client that we've had in a year and a half, I have to say, really.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because it's we've talked about it on many episodes with many designers and business coaches, but when you think about that, is so clear when you said two things you said. We know that clients come to us for interior design, but we also know they come because they come for us. Who we're going to be and they want to know what that experience is like, right? So they're not just looking at a portfolio. They're also wanting to know who you are. And then the second thing that you said was, well, okay, who are we? We're a firm that does luxury design, that we take pride in our service, and that we as individuals, as human beings, have our own intrinsic values. And so then you just break it down. Well, what is it about our service? What is it about luxury? And what are our intrinsic values? I think it's such a clear-cut way to describe it. I love it. Good for you.
Well, it was a really fun process, and I recommend it for anyone who, even if you're an individual,
right,
running your own, you have a smaller look at design and you do it all yourself, just put it down in front of you. This is who you are, and this is what you want your clients to find you as.
Right.
So what is that? It just became very clear. And it's been several years since we've done that. We do revisit it at least once a year. We talk about, are there any changes? Have we learned anything that makes any difference? And, we've stuck to those core values now for several years and feel really confident in who we are.
I love it. Well, and it really does speak to let me just back up. We often talk on the show that if you identify the things about you that set you apart from the fabulous designer sitting next to you at the conference, then each individual's ideal client can find you, because there is an ideal client for every person. But this takes it a step further in really with a little bit more of a how to arrive at it. I'll tell you, I had a recent experience with a designer on Instagram, and her name is Shanae, and I just recently met her in person, and it was really cool because she had an aha moment in our interaction. And to me, I was so privileged to be a part of that aha moment, because what happened was, I tell everybody all the time, the Instagram is like the number one way that I find interior designers, right? And so what happened is a particular designer, Shanae, she actually commented on one of the posts, okay? I don't remember what the post was or what the comment was, but what happens is if someone takes the time to write a comment, then what I usually do is I take the time to answer that comment back. And what I'd like to do is I like to answer you by your first name. So if your design firm is what the comment comes up as, then I go to your Instagram feed, and two things happen. I'm looking for your name, and I'm also like, while I'm here, let me take a look around at their work, right? Might be somebody else that we should interview. And so Shanae left a very nice compliment. I go to her Instagram feed, and it doesn't have her name on it. And I didn't know if it was a her or a he, right? And so a lot of times I might just go, all right, never mind. But the comment probably struck me enough that I was like, no, keep going, and really found out this person's name. So then I went to the website, and there was no name there. No name. There was 4 or 5 pages of this website, and it had beautiful photography, and it had beautiful copy, and it was a beautiful website. But I didn't know if this was a man, a woman, a duo, a big firm, a little firm. I couldn't tell. And I sat there with that for a moment, and I was like watching TV. It was like 9:30 at night. I think I'm watching Scandal. And, and I'm like, I really should say something. I mean, because I actually then got my computer out, because I was like, you have to be missing this on the phone. You know what I mean? So now I get my laptop out, and I'm like, my God, like, I don't know not one personal thing about that interior designer. And I couldn't even tell what town that interior designer, what state that interior designer was in. And so I'm thinking to myself, how can somebody hire this designer? How can you? I don't know anything about them. And so I come back to the Instagram private message. I now go to private message, and I'm like, please take this in the best way possible. I said, but I wanted to find out your name. And I said, and I went to your website, and I could not only not find out your name, but I don't know anything about you, anything about who you are and why I would want to hire you. We really need to suggest in the best way possible that you should consider an About You page that tells me actually about you. And I said, and at this point, I don't even know if I'm talking to a man or a woman or a group or a solo. And so she came back with, I'm brand new, and it's on my 90-day plan, and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, my brain is going, 90 days, like, you've got a website up day one. Like, I need to know who you are today. And so, but then I heard crickets, and I thought, oh my goodness, I think I offended this person. I'm so sorry. But we sat there, I watched the end of Scandal, and about an hour later comes the message, and it says, what an hour and a glass of Shiraz will do for you. And she goes, go look now. And I went to look, and there is this beautiful picture of Shanae, and it just is so, the light shines through her in this picture, and then she put some information, completely changed the copy, and I was just like, that is rock star. And I had the great pleasure of meeting her last night at the Designer Liberty event. And so the lesson in there is so true and I took all the time to share that little interaction with Shanae, because she has been listening to the show, and she thought as a new solo, it didn't apply to her yet, that it didn't matter to her yet. And that's really, what you just said. It's even if you're a solo, that prospective client needs to know who they're getting when they think about interacting and just even think about a consultation with you. Right, Jane?
Right. And I think that most people want to connect. If they're laying out a lot of who they are and talking to you, I always tell my clients, we're going to talk like we're dating. You're either going to love me at the end of this, or we're going to part ways. Most people end up loving, which is wonderful.
Just saying.
But I want people to understand that this is an in-depth as to who you are. I'm willing to tell you who I am. Right. This is the only way that there can be a true back and forth. And people need to understand that when they're putting themselves out. I believe the more someone knows about who you are as a person, it's going to help you stand out. And I didn't want to hide behind beautiful design. Yes, it's absolutely wonderful. And I think I used to, when I started in this world of design, I decided that, I have to put my best foot forward, and it has to be the best living room and the best shot. And I still worry about some of those things. But what has become more valuable to me is knowing that what's intrinsically part of me is more important to the process, especially in the beginning, beginning.
Right. It's so true, because, and it's, as you just described, the relationship with an interior designer, especially on some of the bigger projects, when you talk about design build, and they could go on for weeks and months and sometimes years, of these projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do, it's like we always talk about on the show, how you want to work with your ideal client. You want the process to be good because you get along with the client, you like the client, and respect the client, but they're looking for the same thing. Let's be real. You know what I mean? And they're the ones putting out all the dollar bills for it.
Exactly. And if you're going to work with somebody for a long time, it just makes sense to me that there's got to be something deeper than I just really like how you put that living room together.
Right.
There has to be more than that. There has to be an in-depth relationship. And it starts with me showing that this is who I am. And I hope that we're connecting based on some of those basic values.
Mm-hmm. What I like too, I mean, and this gets a little bit cold, but the fact of the matter is in a minute we're going to talk about some of these values and what they mean to you. But the simple truth is, and this is the cold part of it, is that whether or not, and I had to describe it. In other words, just having it out there says something about you. That's what it said to me. In other words, just boldly saying these are my core values, whether or not I would agree with 2 of them or 12 of them, the act of doing that and the vulnerability of doing that, you know what I mean? That automatically endears me. It automatically endeared me to you. I automatically was like, well, this is a lady who knows herself and isn't afraid to tell you who and what it is. And that, and not in a, hey, I'm, hear me woman, here I'm roar type of way, but just like I've taken the time to think about what's important to me and my life and my business. That's what it showed to me. And so immediately I was like, she's probably going to take very careful attention of my project if she takes. And what I'm saying is that many of us have taken the time to do that exercise, but putting it out there is the next layer that just hit me so positively, and which is why, if I can find a minute and a half in my lifetime, I'm going to duplicate and copy you.
Oh, well, I love that. I love that. It like we said, it's the highest form of flattery.
Yes,
I love it. But I think it's also something that makes me vulnerable, and people have to be ready for that.
Yes.
It's two-sided. It's vulnerability sometimes puts you kind of out there in a place that you have to wait for the acceptance of other people to understand it, but that also shows I'm willing to do that for you. So it's worked in many instances to assist us in making sure that people understand who we are. And like you said, doing your project is about detail and understanding you, and the minute details that come through on design are so important, and it has to do with how we look at everything as to whether we look at the details that are important to the individual client.
Right.
It shows who we are.
Yeah, I love it. I just really, truly love it. And I really encourage everybody that is, running, walking, driving now, when you have a moment, to go to Jane's website and take a look at it. But so for now, let's talk about some of these things. Now, a cohesive team, I certainly can understand that. Champagne professionals, what does that mean, and what are you trying to portray when you say that?
Well, when you think of luxury, what are some of the things that come to mind? What are places, feelings, objects? They're things that we normally associate with luxury. And one of the things that I think probably from early on, we see images of crystal glasses with this bubbly liquid in it, and it evokes an emotion in all of us. And champagne professionals to us means we're full of luxury. We're bubbling over with professionalism in the way that we are going to share that with you, and we want to celebrate doing that. But champagne professionals makes me think of luxury in a careful way. It's liquid, bubbly liquid that is something that we don't open every night. Love to open the Cabernets and the Pinot Noirs and all of that. However, champagne is for special occasions. It's a specialty drink for all of us, even in mind. Even if you're just thinking about it, there's something luxurious about it. We wanted to show that that's how we think of all of our clients' projects on a daily basis, and all of our clients, they are helping us to be that champagne professional by thinking that way. So champagne professionals means there's a whole lot more behind our thought process that uplifts and celebrates the process.
I love it. I love it. I love it a lot. Do you find that clients, I'm going to ask you about several more of these, but it occurred to me, do you find that clients come to you with dialogue on these? I mean, not necessarily as qualifiers. I don't mean like, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to hire you. What do you mean by this? But just more once maybe they get to know you or in the discovery process. Do they ask you to explain some of these, or do the most clients take it at face value? Most of it is easily understood, exactly what you mean, and things like that that could, benefit with a little bit of a description. Of course, what's there, Champagne Professionals, even though I didn't know exactly what you meant by it, I know it meant something good. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you find that people ask you about those, or do they just take them at face value and move on once they're satisfied through the discovery process of the conversation and everything?
Well, I think, of course, it always depends on where the discussion is directed, especially by the client. We always bring people back to, speaking of these, maybe not necessarily calling it Champagne Professionals in those words, but we're talking about everything that we're going to be working with them, providing for them. Everything that we have available brings them back to these values. So when we're talking about how we're going to run their project, maybe we're talking about scheduling of even the deliveries of some furnishings. We're talking about the organization, the detail of what's happening, all of the production that ends up in their eyes being seamless. Have I said all of those three words? Probably not. But what the conversation brings out is that is what we're doing. So we're talking about the process and the execution of the process, and it comes out as some of those things. Champagne Professionals starts with that feeling of luxury, understanding who they are, and ready to celebrate who they are, and then going into some of the finer details. It's about every single one of those core values brought into the discussion. So they might not be word for word, but it's part of, and that's why those have to be, if you're going to put those out and that's who you are, they better be, right, well, and they better be part of who you are, because we speak with our clients from the heart. At least that's what I do and what my team does. And so it's natural for us to go back to talking about those. In fact, when you said, oh, I read through all 12, I'm like, ooh, let me remember what all 12 of them.
Right.
Because we just live those.
Right.
It is part of who we are. So if you're going to put it out there, make sure that is true to who you are and how you do your process of business and design.
Okay. So what you're explaining is that you're not going to sit down with a prospective client and run through, hey, did you happen to read my core values? Right.
Exactly.
Right. But in the course of your discovery phone calls with them, and then your initial consultations with them, and then throughout the process of the project, once you're hired, because it is truly 12 principles that you own, that you live, that they are constantly being reinforced by the discussion and the actions and the words and the way you handle the project, is what you're saying. Okay. And so I love that. And that, of course, is the icing on the cake of that, is exactly what you punctuated with, which is. And so don't put up something up there that, came from my core value list because you think it's a good idea. Because if it's not yours, it's going to ring as hollow, because in the course of a 2-week or a 6-month or a 2-year project, you're never going to once have enunciated that either verbally or non-verbally to the client. And so then it makes you look like, you're nonsense. Okay. Okay. I like that. Okay. So now, so now, organized, detailed, and seamless. Tell us what sort of project management tools or systems that you utilize that you're comfortable as announcing to the world that this is a part of the experience with working with your firm.
Well, we come from a place of design normally in people's heads. You're dealing with all kinds of elements. So in some way, we all have to be organized, but we all love to think of ourselves as artistic as well. Well, what does artistic say? Oh, we're a little bit all over the place. So what we want clients to understand about us is we're going to bring you that design element of the artistry, and it's going to be beautiful, and everything is going to work together. by stating we're organized, detailed, and seamless, that means we have systems in place, like you're asking, for that process to happen. And part of that is we're using a software in-house to help us project manage all of the details, to keep us organized, to make sure that every detail is taken care of. And we're pleased to say that we use Studio Webware and have for many years. And it's a software that really helps both the designer, the design team, the accounting, all of the people that are involved in your business, all the way through to the client, can be part of this system. Keeps everything in really detailed, organized order.
I think it's very important. Of course, everybody listening knows that I'm partial to my Doma Studio, but what I'm mostly partial to is that you have one that you use. You know what I mean? So that, and look, people like me that have been in business for many years before there were any, before there were even computers in our businesses, honestly, let alone software developed for our industry. I mean, I use a different software that's specific to the window treatment industry, but the point is that if you have systems in place, that's the very least of it. And then if you can move those systems to a software platform like My Doma Studio or Studio Web or whatever your preference is, then it does facilitate a higher level of execution and I think the communication between yourself and the client, which is what doesn't happen when you just have a paper system of your own necessarily. So I think
that's correct.
Yeah.
I think that's important to know that you can still do it by paper and pen, but it absolutely helps the entire process and the understanding of your client to have a system in place.
Right. Okay. And the truth is, I mean, literally in 2017, there's no reason not to have one. And I don't care if you are a solo. I really do believe that a solo benefits from one of these platforms as well. And I think that if you are a new designer starting out and you just start your firm in that way, it just it's going to just set you up to be able to scale and duplicate yourself and increase your business and your profits more seamlessly than if you say, oh, well, I don't have $30 a month for that. And I just made up a number. I have no idea how much they cost. I'm just saying.
Well, and it's just like saying, well, I'll do it in 90 days.
Right.
You mentioned earlier. Well, 90 days, that's a big time frame.
That's
Things
right.
can happen and you'll be behind. So put your best foot forward to start with and get a system in place.
Exactly. Okay, so now number 6 is exemplary communication with design build team. So is that part of your software management, or do you have criteria and protocol that dictate, like you might use the software platform for doing that communication, but do you have overarching principles that you expect and exemplify to your firm for how and when you communicate with your clients, Jane?
Absolutely, we do. And
Okay.
there's no project that we tackle without making sure that we have that laid out in the very beginning, especially when you're talking about perhaps even having anywhere from 5 to 50 trades working on one project. And we just had one project. We had 27 trades
Whoa.
that needed to work seamlessly together in a 3.5 month period of time.
I'm exhausted thinking about it.
I'm sometimes I look back and think, okay, that was a dream, but no, it actually worked for us to set up the process in the beginning to explain to each of those trades, this is who you're going to be communicating with. This is when we expect communication in return. This is how we expect it. Here's the final communication. Then you'll know the job is done. We set everything out ahead of time, and we set out even things in writing such as people think, oh, it's a scope of work. It's a detailed explanation of what's expected. It has to be done at the beginning. So we make sure that our team puts that together, and we hand it to all of our partners in doing a project. And we consider everybody that. They're a partner. So because we've considered them a partner in the process, we build them into how we always communicate. And exemplary communication with all of the trades working on a project really does help make everything go smoothly. Without it, it's
Yes.
lost.
No, I agree. And I've never asked anybody this question on the show before, but I'm curious what you would say. So here's a typical scenario that happens for me when I'm working with an interior designer on a project. They might make a purchase order for their window treatments with me and forget if it's been done to enough detail to begin with at the beginning, honestly. That would be a dream. But let's just say, here's a typical scenario. A purchase order comes and it says 2 pairs of drapes, master bedroom, 2 rods, master bedroom, and a price. Okay, so we both know that that's like makes me crazy, right? But so let's say 2 things happen, one or the other. It either says fabric to be decided, or it says a fabric, which at some point down the line gets changed. Or it says 2 pairs of drapes, fabric XYZ, trim on lead edge, to be decided. And I'm going to tell you the types of things that I come across. I come across, okay, no fabric's been decided. Okay, and then, but I've gotten now a deposit. I've been to take measurements, and the designer has given me this purchase order. And in the designer's mind, that's an ordered product. And I'm like, in my mind, I don't know what the fabric is. And then when fabric shows up, and of course I'm getting, 10, 20 bolts of fabric a day, and God knows if anybody of the companies side marked them, and we do this mess of trying to figure out who's what. But more importantly, that's actually easier if no fabric has been decided, because it comes in and it says XYZ designer, master bedroom client, yada, yada. But there are changes that happen with you guys on your end. So maybe a fabric that you picked was back ordered and was back ordered too long, and you went and reselected with the client. I never get a reorder on that. Never. I don't know that I've ever. And so What is your opinion on that? What do you think that is? Because now I'm going to do a work order and a fabric comes in, and I will spin my wheels for, I can't tell you how long. And it could be minutes or it could be hours before I figure out that the fabric that I have that's marked for the master bedroom is actually replacing the fabric that's on the purchase order. And I struggle with knowing how busy interior designers are with doing this hard line rule of, if you don't update me with an updated PO, then the work order isn't going to move forward. Like, what is your opinion on that? What do you think is reasonably expected?
I'm surprised that there are sort of, and then sort of not surprised that there are glitches like that. And you're the end receiver of what happens in a designer's world, and have to produce something that the designer has to say, this was my work and here's my fabricator did this. I'm surprised that someone wouldn't feel a little bit more of an obligation to include you in any changes. We have in place that whenever there are changes made, that it gets written out, and then it's put on a person's desk in my office to then contact the fabricator through an email, and the email's followed up with a phone call. This such and such fabric of 8 yards was discontinued. They don't have enough. We've now changed it to this. It will be side marked, Susie so-and-so. It's coming to you, should be there within, and we usually have a date of time. So we have a process of, once something's changed, whoever the designer is working on that change, it gets written up, it gets put on the person's desk who follows through with the communication with the fabrication person to let them know. So there's something in writing, and then there's a follow-up to say, hey, LuAnn, did you get my update? We had to change, the client needed to know this. We let them know. You need to know, because now perhaps the pattern has changed and I need 10 yards. You need to tell me that.
Right.
I depend on you as the expert to tell me. So I treat all of our tradespeople that we're working with, who become, like I said, our partners on a project. If you don't understand it, how am I going to look good in the end?
Right.
So I need your help with that. So I say there is a process that needs to happen, and every design studio needs to have that in place.
And I struggle because, listen, I'm not talking to a bunch of window treatment people who are like, I know it's the worst. I'm talking to interior designers. They're like, really, LuAnn, don't bust on us, okay?
Well, and no, we're not saying that we're going to do it, perfectly every time.
Right.
'Cause sometimes slip on us. A trim doesn't come in, something changes, but there is the sense of need for communication. One person studio, 3-person, or 25 people in a studio. There should be a process of, if something changes on the project, there's a line of communication.
Right. Well, my thing is, I brought it up only because if I said to you that in 30 plus years that I've worked with probably 60 or 70 or more interior designers, if it happened twice, I don't bring it up. But when I say the change order is infinitely more rare in a 30 plus year career, honest to God. And I have struggled with being the hard nose about it because I've always just been the one, all right, let me dance around for minutes or hours until I figure this out. And ultimately, if I can, I'll chase you down and find the information. But and I just feel like, well, that's part of your service. That's what you got to do. But then when it creates delays or problems, then of course, I almost want to go, well, I was working with nothing, and how was I supposed to get anything done with nothing? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, I think that, it's just a point of communication. And I think I can do that as well in my mind, say, oh, good. I can look at sending you all of the fabrics and everything's done, and I think, phew, it's a burden off me. I can move on to the next. I have to go build that sofa over here. I have to go decide on lighting or something. So I've kind of emptied it from my mind. But the minute I know that there's a change, I know I have to bring you back into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're my professional partner that is going to help make a difference in the end to the client. Mm-hmm. Because if the glue between us isn't really good, then it's not going to be really good for the client.
Right.
So I'd hate to have them receive, the bedding with, the outside duvet cover looking different than the backside, or,
Right. Exactly.
Oh, that's not where I meant. I really meant that for the drapes.
Exactly.
And I have no recourse except to myself. Well, did you communicate to LuAnn that was different?
Right. Right.
So, you don't want to beat anybody else up in the design world. I understand that, but just a simple communication form, that's how we approach it.
I like it. And I don't know if Studio Webware has it, but I know that Sarah, the CEO of My Doma Studio, was just on Power Talk Friday recently, and she described how their platform has added being able to bring your vendors into the projects. And so and I think that's an awesome introduction. And of course, I don't need to be in the client facing conversation, but one of the things where I just was like, oh, that's a slam dunk, because on the other side of it, I do have designers that happily are organized and keep me updated about changes, and then this is where I get picky, okay? And that's what I'm like, okay, stop complaining. But 15 emails over 3 weeks with changes does not make my mind easy. You know what I'm saying? Now I have to search through, 200 emails that come in a day and go, wait, was there a change order on this? Then my brain says, well, they've emailed it. That's the way that you can verify it. That's the way they can verify it. What else do you want them to do? And so I struggle with that, because that is effective communication. It is verifiable communication. It is, something that we can all point back to 6 months later and say, no, this is what you said. But it is very difficult to track that when you are dealing with multiple designers and multiple changes. And so for you guys, I say the same thing. Well, I'm dealing with multiple of you, but you're dealing with multiple of me, the tile, the carpenter, the this. And I'm like, do you like all your stuff all over 90,000 emails? I don't know who is this helping? And so when Sarah said that all of the conversation related to a specific client could be within one little, conversation hub, I was like, So I could just go in. If a designer can invite me into Mrs. Smith's project, and I can go back at 2:00 in the morning when I can't sleep and say, did she want to take the trim off of that? And just look there. I love that.
Yes. Yes. And it is part of many systems out there now. So it is our backup.
That is.
It is where things are.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I'm a true believer. Maybe it's because I've been around a while, but I'm a true believer in a phone call also helps.
Yes.
Whether, it's just to say, hey, did you get the connection? I sent you the update. It's in the system. Take a look. Or
Right.
it's an email. It's a quick change. I just wanted to make sure you got it because that helps me sleep at night.
Right.
I followed through.
Right. And how do you handle your communication client facing? I've talked to some firms that have a very organized approach to it where every Friday before end of business, someone in the office is tasked with updating each client in-house, like this is exactly what we did with your project this week. This is what's on tap for next week. Or there's different methods that different designers utilize. Do you guys have a set thing, or is it enough that it's in the software program and the client can see what's happening? How do you handle that, Jane?
Well, it's not just one system, so it crosses over again in multiple. And part of that is, yes, it's in our system, but then there is a direct follow-up with our clients. It depends on our clients as to how much they do want to hear from us.
That's true, right? Some clients want hands-on every single minute, and the others are like, really, seriously, once every 3 weeks is enough. I know you're out there, right?
Yeah. Please call me later.
Right.
Please
call me never.
I'll talk to you after I get back from my vacation,
Right.
and we love that. But so we find out initially from our client that best communication, and then we agree upon: is it once a week, twice a week? Is it short enough project that you only want a phone call from me? Do you want updates? I like to follow up. Once again, I do believe in things need to be tracked. So it's either through our system and they're getting an email through that, or they're getting a personal email saying this is the latest. And it varies with the client, but we set it up in the beginning.
I like that. That's the best tip of the whole thing right there, is that you do two things: that you feel out and discuss and actually ask the client what their preference is for the amount of communication, and that you then agree to that at the onset of a project. So that's very actionable, and it's true, because some people they want to know, every day or every couple of days, what's the progress and where's the tile. And other people are like, honestly, I'll know there's tile when the bathroom has tile in it. Like, don't call me every 20 seconds, right?
Right. And so if you set it up in front, and now that we have even texting going on, so many things can come across with misspelled words. We're miscommunicating.
Or wrong intent assumed. Right.
Exactly. So now we set up the major communications, and then we tell them that, that we would like to communicate. Perhaps they say, oh, no, you need to call me every day. Well,
right. You don't have to go for whatever they say. You can have a happy medium, right?
Exactly. And then tweeting becomes an issue if people like to tweet. And then there's texting and those kinds of things. So we do corral people in the beginning. And I say corral because everybody's a little bit different. But in order to communicate to our best ability, we need to let them know what works best for us in their project. And they need to let us know how they're comfortable.
Right.
What makes it work for them. I don't want to bother you at work if that's not how things should go. I also know that I'd prefer a phone call during most daylight hours, but at 10 o'clock
not daylight
at night,
saving hours, though.
Right. But at 10 o'clock at night, I'd prefer not. But I would definitely take care of it.
I know. I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't like texting for over things that matter. Texting to me is, hey, are you on time? Texting is, I'm running a little bit late. Texting isn't, I need an appointment to see you on Tuesday at 5, are you available? No. That's a phone call to Adriana. That is not a text to my cell phone. You know what I mean? Exactly. It just breaks down the process. It clogs down the process, because I know what happens for me is I could be involved in a 3-hour project measure with an interior designer, and maybe my phone ticks off and the designer is in another room, hashing something out with the kitchen guy or something, and I'm now measuring, and I might, okay, who texted me? And I open it, and if it's my office, okay, I have to decide if it's important, do I have to excuse myself or whatever. But if it's like a designer or a client that's looking to move a project forward in any way, make a decision on something, make an appointment for something, once I've opened it, now I don't have that little number sign there anymore. And by the time I look at text again, it could be 6 hours later. And I've literally had texts that have gone so far down the feed that 2 days later, I'm like, oh my goodness, I got that text, when that really so much more efficiently would have been a phone call to WindowWorks. Hi, I want LuAnn to come back, or hi, tell LuAnn this. And instead, it's this inefficient thing in a text that gets lost in 19 messages with my mother and my kids. I mean, honestly.
Well, and that's where important information shouldn't be relayed that way. We've actually ended up with things totally upside down and inside out because of a text gone awry. Yes. So I don't want the client to feel like, 52 texts to me today regarding the edging on your countertop really isn't going to help the situation.
Exactly.
So
as a designer, though, you sort of hear their ideal scenario for communication. You meld it with what works for your firm and gives credit and respect to their needs, but gives credit and respect to what's actually efficient.
Exactly.
I love it.
It's the only way we feel comfortable working.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. All righty. Now, there was another one. Okay, client-driven and focused budget. I know that we all need to know what somebody's budget is in order to decide and understand if they're really a client for us. And Leonidas was just on the podcast the other week or so ago, and she mentioned that very often when she asks a client, what's your budget for this master bedroom? The answer is, I don't know. And so I'm curious. I know that happens to a lot of all of us in the industry. What sorts of things do you do, Jane? Do you have an intake questionnaire for your firm that helps you ascertain if it's the right client for you and for your firm? Because sometimes people are in the wrong, neck of the woods here. How do you handle that?
Well, we do have, once again, we're really good at that process. And we do have a questionnaire to go out to our clients via an email. If they call us, then that's explained. There's a few questions that we ask up front, and then we ask to email them, and that they would fill out this questionnaire and send it back to us. And then we will call them, because one of the things on the questionnaire is, please list a few dates and times in the next 2 weeks that would be convenient for us to have a conversation. So that's part of the questionnaire as well. We're also helping the schedule and them as a potential client move forward. So, but back to that budget question, asking that question leads many times to exactly what you've heard so many designers say. Most clients say, I don't know. How much does it cost?
Right.
Well, give me $1 million. I can do a lot.
Exactly.
I
could do a bedroom for $1,000, but I'd love to do it for $100,000.
Yeah, exactly. So what we want to guide people to is not only what's the budget, but what are you comfortable spending?
Right, because it's not always, that they can't afford it. It's what in their brain they even think is like logical for their own value system, right?
So we have some questions that we ask both on paper and then when they schedule a conversation with us. But some of those questions center around, if you were to purchase a sofa, how would you go about doing that? And how much money do you feel fits the type of sofa that you would want in your home?
Okay. So that's very telling, because somebody that has had absolutely no experience with an interior designer, and that means like their mother didn't work with a designer and their sister didn't work with a designer, they might say, well, I would walk around Raymore and Flanagan and it'd probably be $800. And then you're just like, ding, 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 right?
Exactly.
Okay.
We can learn so much about what people say. And then something else that is a good question to ask is we've put it many different ways. It depends on your client and the conversation. We like to have a little bit of levity to dealing with a very intense situation sometimes. But say we're looking at a master bathroom remodel. There's all kinds of hard surfaces and things that normal everyday life doesn't include us going to purchase.
Right.
So people have no idea about that. And I get that when people say, well, I don't have any idea. Okay, well, let's talk about how much money in your bank account there is. And without asking that directly is, yeah, what's your squealing point? What is going to make you extremely comfortable? What's the number when I say 100,000? 150,000, 200, 500, we start seeing the squirming start.
Okay.
And so you ask those questions. And yes, nobody likes to talk about money. So I don't want to make it too personal about what's in your bank account, but I am going to say, what are you comfortable with spending?
Right.
Whether it's in your savings, your bank account, your neighbor's bank account. I don't
Right.
care.
You don't care where it comes from. Right.
Right. But just tell me what you're comfortable with. You may have all the money in the world to be able to do all kinds of renovation, but you only want to spend 100,000 on this project.
Right.
Because that's what you feel comfortable with. I need to know that. So sometimes we joke around with the squealing point. Where is that squealing starting? Where are you squirming? What's happening?
I love that. And that really could be, you mentioned 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, but that could be utilized by a brand new interior designer as well. And even if you take it all the way back to someone calls a brand new interior designer and they say, I'm interested in sprucing up my master bedroom. And that premise could be part of their questionnaire. Okay, for your master bedroom project, what is the point that you would feel comfortable, and where is the point that you would start to feel uncomfortable? $500 investment in this bedroom, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. Because if somebody says, I'm comfortable at 5 and I'm squealing at 1,000. Well, we're painting the room and getting a new bedspread. Let's be real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
If somebody says, 10,000, well, maybe there's new flooring and a bedspread and a headboard and some bedding and some window treatments. I mean, but the point is that even on, like we're talking to you, you're a luxury firm in Las Vegas, and you're obviously very successful, 13 years more in business, but there is an analogy there for that new designer to utilize the same concept in their, comfort zone with their particular client. I like that. I like that a lot, because I think that from what I've listened and learned to over the last year is that it is very common for a larger firm, not even that your firm is so big, but a more established firm and a well-organized firm like your own, and a firm that usually is more involved in the luxury market, to have these sorts of questionnaires. I remember Andrea Schumacher discussed a questionnaire. I remember Corey Klesen discussed a questionnaire. Pulp Design Studio did. It's not, it's expected at that level. And I think that a lot of new designers think that, well, when I get to be big and I am really asking if somebody has 100,000 or 500,000, I guess I'll have a questionnaire. But it is almost more valuable, because it's the newer designer that tends to spin their wheels more often, chasing a project that is never going to pay them. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And why would we want to spend more time doing the backpedaling, the paperwork that's going to catch up to something, instead of designing?
Right.
Ask any designer. We want to spend our time designing.
Exactly.
So put it together ahead of time. Once again, LuAnn, it goes back to that. Don't wait the 90 days to do it. Someday it's going to happen. Go back to think, I'm going to do it up front. I'm going to put this together for myself. Even if a designer starting out has, 5 or 6 basic questions other than, your name, email address, and your phone number. Let's ask a few questions that directs them so that you can help get the answers to how to approach their project.
I love it. I think that's so actionable. And just give us an idea for that newer designer, if they have no questionnaire, their needs are different. Like you said, they really could ascertain if a project is a viable project for them or not with 5 or 6 questions. Would you share a couple of things that come to mind that somebody out there is like, okay, hang on one second, I'm getting a pen?
Well, I think an easy question to ask everybody is, well, there's 2 sides of that easy question. One is, what do you dislike the most in the room you want me to design?
Oh.
And then what do you love? What do you want me to keep in your room?
Okay.
Those 2 tell you a lot, because how a person answers that question, if they're very succinct, I hate the bed, get rid of it. I can't stand the floor. Or I absolutely love the jewelry chest my mother gave me when I was 10. So there's some sentiment involved. This person has some attachments to treasures and memories. You can ascertain a whole lot about a person with those 2 questions. And then also you might want to know a time frame.
Oh, that's a good one.
It also tells you if the person
has a clue, right?
Exactly. So they're telling you they just want bedding and they expect it tomorrow, you can stop. But but if they want a whole house remodel and they expect to move in 30 days, also expectations need to be discussed.
I love it.
So you can ask a few questions that bring you to a very important conversation.
I love it. All right. I'm writing these down. No, because it's true. They're very telling. They're simple questions on the surface, but they give you a lot of information. And so really with 3 questions, like one that's a 2-parter, but with really, 4 questions. What do you love about the space? What do you dislike the most about a space? What is your time frame? And then the question about the squealing. For this project you have in mind is 1,000, the place that makes you comfortable, or it's 5,000, is 10,000, whatever. That really does set up a very good foundation for what it is it starts a good foundation for a place to have a finite conversation to establish a communication for the project, right?
Absolutely. And it's going to make the relationship start out in a good place. If this is going to be your client, you've set a good stage to begin.
I love it, because my experience is that with a newer interior designer is that they often get sucked into a project that ends up not being profitable for them, because often just exactly this, the parameters and the expectations weren't set up from the beginning, and sometimes it's because maybe that designer didn't understand how to do it. Other times I feel like it's because it's like, well, it's just one master bedroom refresh. Why did I need to do this whole big beforehand process? And then all of a sudden there you are down this rabbit hole for 9,000 years with this client.
Exactly.
And it's like, so it's really understanding. One of the things that we've said very often on the show is run your business like a big business like yours is. Run it that way from the beginning and establish these processes and these systems. And of course, your questionnaire might be 12 questions because you are potentially doing a $500,000 project. So if you're only potentially doing a $5,000 or a $10,000 project, well, maybe you don't need the rank and serial number too, and all that. But these few questions set it up pretty nicely. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I'll tell you what, you know what you're doing, don't you?
Well, you do say that, yes.
And we didn't talk about Amanda at all. And let's just take a few minutes before I let you go. I know we're running on our hour here already, but Amanda, your daughter, I mentioned her in the introduction, but she's a big part of your business. And I just know as a mother, I love 5 seconds to toot my kid's horn. So tell me some amazing things about Amanda.
Well, Amanda joined me, as I said, 6.5 years ago, and it all started with a phone call with Mom going, you don't really want to live in LA, right? You do want to live in Las Vegas. And you know that wonderful schooling that you have she attended Savannah College of Art and Design, and I said, how about if we bring that home?
Oh.
And and she came, and we approach this business as a duo. It's both of us, and we let our clients know there's even more for them when there's two of us involved, even in all of their process. And then I also have my office team, but with Amanda and I, they get two brains working for them in a really unique way, and it helps us connect with clients because she'll see things that I don't. She also keeps me grounded. There's a lot of things that as a artistic mind I could run with and not even look back, and she has that very artistic side, but she also has a grounding in management. She has a master's in design management, and she can help focus the project when I have decided it's more fun to go pick some fabrics to pull it. Oh, let's just add more layers. And she's okay, this is where the budget is. This is how much more time you have on the project.
Rope it back in, Mom.
Yeah. And she'll say, and no, you're not adding more red because I really hate that. So it's really good to have that. And I can't even imagine going back to the days without having her part of the company.
Isn't that nice?
She's my right arm.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, it's funny because I think that it's a great thing to have somebody to collaborate with. I mean, some of the solo interior designers that I know, have said one of the things that they like with working with Window Works for the window treatments is because at least for that part of the project, they feel like they have that collaborator, because we will sit there and debate the minutia of should it be 1 inch longer or 1/2 inch longer. And of course, my brain fries, but I will give you my opinion on that.
Well, and sometimes we just need to jump into a different realm and a thought that we hadn't gotten to. And sometimes, people say, well, how do you decide on things where you disagree? Yeah. Well, Amanda will say, we'll just play rock, paper, scissors and have it over with. Because, of course, I'm the one that has to look back on who taught her that. Oh, yeah. So, but we also allow each other to have our own passionate moments. So if I'm extremely passionate about adding that red to that project and another fabric layer, she's going to back off at some point and say, okay, there must be a reason. Why are you wanting this? What makes the difference? Right. And then we help work it out. Where does it go? How can we afford to do that part? And how does it look in the whole process? So it helps me a lot, and it does help. We all need someone to bounce our ideas off of. I just think it's so important.
And also, too, I mean, like you said, she's got the MBA in design management. The two of you probably have, they call it, your individual zones of genius, right? So where you both just respect that the other person, this is really their wheelhouse. And if they're really saying this, I have to listen, despite the fact that it's my daughter or my mother, right? That person has a skill set. That's how it is with Kimberly. There's just certain things that, I mean, even consultants and things that we work with, they will say to me, with developing the website or with doing, whatever it is. And they'll say, well, do you like this one, or this one? I go, I like whatever one Kim likes. Like, whatever. It's not my zone of genius.
Exactly. And when you work with somebody on a regular basis that you can do that with, I think it creates an opportunity for us to grow in who we are and develop our skills better, because I don't have to worry about whether it's getting put into the project the right way. She's going to do it.
Yes, exactly.
So you trust someone else to have that notion to move it forward in the right way.
Yes. I love it. I mean, I'm a big, huge believer in if somebody you really know, whether you're hiring them as an outside expert or somebody within your own team, you really know has a skill set in a particular area that is better than yours. I don't need to overthink it. I mean, I will not make those decisions. I'm like, I don't care. Ask her. I don't even want to know. And then she may come back and say, well, I thought this one or that one. I'm like, okay, whatever. Because there are a dozen things that she is always going to make a better decision than I am on it. And then there's the same thing. She'll call me, once or twice a week. I have this situation. I have this, dilemma. I have this scenario, and how do you think I should handle it? And so I love that. I love being able to, and of course with our partners, it's the same thing. But here we are with employees that you give them the space to grow, and so that's pretty awesome. And then, but it is a different layer when it's family.
It is, and there's a learning curve to working with anyone where you're sharing ideas, putting things together. But we have a synergy that is difficult to explain. It once again goes back to our core. This is who we are, and we value that in each other. And some people say, I'd never be able to work with my daughter, or I'd never be able to work with my mother. It just wouldn't work. And I never had the expectation that my daughter come to work with me, ever. Right. I never had that expectation. That one phone call was, I know you've been in the background. She's always done my web work. She's always done everything behind the scenes, but I'm calling now going, let's try to make it work on an everyday basis. Fine. Because I know we can. Nice. And we just respect each other and respect how we can better what we set out to do. Created that for ourselves.
I love it. You're so very lucky too. Good for you.
Yes, I feel fortunate.
Yes. Well, you know what? I can hear it. You have a great head on your shoulders. You're clearly a great businesswoman. You sound like you're an awesome mom. And I just think that I'm really, hats off to you. I'm happy to know you, and I'm really glad that you came on the show today, because I know you shared a lot of terrific information that is going to help your colleagues. So Jane, thank you so much.
Thank you, LuAnn, and I am so excited to call you my friend, and in this business, that's really important. Yep. I really appreciate it. Thank you, LuAnn.
My great thanks to the featured sponsor of our podcast, Cravat Inc. Of all the terrific things about Cravat, do you know about CuratedCravat.com? I know you've heard me tell you all about it for this last year and a half, but have you taken a minute to really go and look and check out CuratedCravat.com yet? You have to see this collection of the most unique, high-quality finished products for the home. The collection includes furniture, lighting, bedding, rugs, accessories, and more. It is so comprehensive. It features customized designs as well as unique hand-picked pieces from the global design market. CuratedCravat.com is available exclusively to the trade. That's right. No direct consumer purchasing. They have your back at Cravat Inc. And have you checked out the innovative ready-to-ship upholstery program? This is groundbreaking in our industry. Where else can you find someone that delivers custom quality furniture fast? I'll tell you where else. Nowhere else. You see, it's the combination custom quality and fast. That is at CuratedCravat.com. You can shop the site by product category, by stylized product stories, and through the curated rooms designed by the industry tastemakers. At CuratedCravat.com, they are committed to making your job more efficient by providing unmatched customer service coupled with an exceptional product offering. Cravat Inc. stands firm in their mission to serve the interior design trade at the very highest level. And the last and one of the most fabulous features is the process is so simple. That's right. Design, click, deliver. Easy as that. One last thing. Cravat Inc. has a thank you to you as a listener of the podcast. If you are on the site and you are ready to make a purchase, any one purchase, you can get 10% off as their thanks to you. Enter the code CKPodcast at checkout for 10% off any one purchase. Well, I do thank them very much, and I really do hope that you will take a moment to see how CuratedCravat.com can help you run your business more efficiently. Do you hear it too? Do you hear it like I hear it? The difference in the different people that you can really tell that they walk the walk and not just talk the talk. I don't mean on the podcast only. I mean in anywhere. There's a difference in the way somebody expresses that they run their business, that you know that they are true that they are actual, that they're not just saying things that they know they should be doing and that they heard that they should be doing, but things that they're actually doing. And I really feel that Jane was one of those people. That's my take on it. And I really love that Jane and Amanda have taken the time to think about their core values. If you heard me speak at the IWCE last March, you know exactly how I feel about that. I think it's one of the top 3 things that you should do when you start your company is to establish your core values. But I also love the little aha that I had on today's podcast because, of course, we've done this at WindowWorks. And if you remember, Kay Whitaker has talked about it on the show in previous episodes along with other guests. But I have never taken the time or even given any thought to having them right on our website. So this is something that, I'm going to think about going forward and probably will be doing. So if you still need to yet establish your core values, please do that. Please write them down, sit down, think about it, kick it around, decide what's important to you. And then this will eventually and ultimately help draw to you the people that share these same values. And of course, what happens then? Then it's a happy project, right? So, all right. In addition to this, Jane also shared some really pretty good tips on some of the questions that you could include on your intake questionnaire. A couple of them were these. If you were to purchase a sofa, how would you go about that? And how much money do you expect it to cost? That's pretty telling, isn't it? We discussed that a little bit in the podcast. How about what's your time frame for this project that you have in mind? And how about this last one? What do you feel you are comfortable spending on this project? $50,000, $100,000, $500,000. This question answers the what is your budget question and sort of takes away the dilemma of the answer, I don't know, how much will it cost, right? And I said it in the show, if this project range is not your wheelhouse yet, it's okay. Insert things that are your wheelhouse, $1,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. This will work. I can tell from the way Jane uses it, and I can tell the way she described it. And of course, we've had other guests mention questions like this on their intake questionnaire before. I think Corey Klassen might have mentioned something about it, and I'm also feeling like Andrea Schumacher might have. So, don't hesitate to incorporate these questions in your beginning process. I think it's especially important for new designers to include these questions because then you don't get chasing your rabbit tail, down a rabbit hole on a project or on a client that just doesn't have the idea of or the wherewithal to understand what it will cost to work with you. Okay? All right. Now, I just want to have a little disclaimer here. I hope you guys don't think that I'm always ragging on designers for poor work orders to us as vendors. I really don't want it to sound like I'm complaining all the time. I only bring it up when it comes up in conversation because I need you to understand your projects will go so much smoother when you have your ducks in a row. I am absolutely and certainly not sitting here saying it's all on you or that as vendors we don't screw up. But this show is for you, the designer, not the vendors. So I'm simply trying to drive home the critical value of your being thorough in your side of the equation. Your communication, your instructions, your information. So yes, it might make our lives as vendors a tiny bit easier if everything is in a row. And I hammer on it though, because there is no question that the ultimate number one benefit is actually to you and your client. We do reap the benefits of the byproduct of it, but it is truly to your benefit, really. And that's why I constantly stress it. I might talk about it in a flip way. I might laugh about it. I might do all of that nonsense. But ultimately, I really do know that from personal experience, the designers that consistently generate very clear work orders, those projects run smoother. And I'm the same person on the other end of it, right? So I'm doing everything I need to do. Your kitchen person is doing everything they need to do. Your tiler's doing everything they need to do. But the better you do your end of it, the better the whole thing comes out. I promise you. Okay? Truly. All right. So that's like a little pep talk there. All righty. So tiny bit of little show notes. First of all, Amazing. Thank you so much for the response to the little mini pledge drive, my plea for iTunes reviews. By the time I'm recording this, it's only a day or two after the 29th, which is when I asked for our little mini fund drive of pledges, and several have come in. So hopefully more will have come in by now. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, we had a show on Monday the 29th with Amber Lewis, and I just put a little thing out there saying, if you are sitting there and you still personally have not put an iTunes review in, I would really love it if you would do it. And so many of you jumped up and did it, and I thank you so much. The other thing I want to say to you is the cat is out of the bag. I will be going to Las Vegas Market, and I will be doing an event with Kelly Ellis, and is going to be co-sponsored by My Doma Studio and Cravat Inc., and we will be having it at the Cravat showroom at Las Vegas Market, and I'm not sure of the day and the time yet, but it's either going to be on the Monday or Tuesday of the Las Vegas Market week. So as soon as the date and the time are nailed down, but I wanted to let you know that it's happening, and it's going to be outrageous. You know, Kelly Ellis is going to bring on the fun and the value, and I am going to ask her all the questions that you want to know. You know that. And we're also going to leave time for a Q&A, so you guys can ask questions of both of us, okay? So I really look forward to that, and I hope that you are planning to go to Las Vegas Market and that you will stop by our event. And please make sure that you come up and introduce yourself to me, okay? All righty. Thank you so much. Don't forget that if you want to be on our email list to make sure that you have all the up-to-date information on all of the events, that you just have to simply get your phone out and text this number, 444-999. And when the field opens up, put in the text field, Design Biz, DESIGNBIZ. No spaces, no caps. Bring you to one more screen. You put your email in, and just like that, you're on our list. And then you will know exactly the day and time that I'll be at the Las Vegas Market. You will know everything that's going on related to the podcast, okay? So thank you so much. I definitely appreciate your listening, and I hope that you have an excellent day. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.